antlers, assumptions, and artillery. Huh. You know, if you can get it in any other color than pink, I'd be up for flying one of those giant bird battle mechs, Jacob remarks after the recording ends. Really, dude? That's your takeaway? I want a Zord? Really? The nerd asks him, and Jacob shrugs. Honestly, after what I saw the Chainbreakers and Sorcerers do and what I did with them, followed by the sheer fucking mess right after, I'm willing to believe seeing a single person treat an enemy army like a bunch of children with snowballs going up against an oncoming meteor, Jacob says. Still, if she has a way to just summon that stick that supersized her, then I've definitely got the right teacher coming up. So you're saying that we need to up our game to impress you? No. I'm saying that I'm playing on your level, and where's my giant fucking robot? You're not going to let that go, are you? Hell no, that was hilarious. Get me a fucking pterodactyl Zord. I'll do it. Hell, I don't even really care about the color. Give it to me in bright sparkly pink. I don't care, I just want the wings, the cannons, and the stupidly huge size to be functional. Jacob rants and the nerd just starts laughing. Still, all said, she knows how to get shit done fast. Which is good. It's something I need. It took me a damn decade to actually move on my target. If I had the chops to hit that hard that fast, then I might have been able to blow that whole hellhole sky high and get the kids out far sooner. I'll need more, but this is a hell of a good starting point. And the fact you were able to infiltrate the place and systematically weaken it isn't something to praise? The nerd asks and Jacob shrugs. It was the starting point. Jacob notes as he considers. So about that stick that turned her into a giant, oh my God, man, that's part of the Mad World Protocol. It's not expected to actually happen. The nerd chides him. Like stumbling onto a massive child abduction and exploitation ring and finding that your plans are being accelerated because someone you pegged as one of their assets was actually biding their time to try and hit them as hard as possible. So you have to use the gigantic communal axiom entity you just helped give birth to in order to actually contain things and properly deal with everything, Jacob asks, and the nerd raises an eyebrow. You said that in one breath? The nerd asks before thinking. Also, that's not what happened. I read the report. You got a lot of details wrong. I got enough right for it to be a legitimate question. No, you fucking didn't, the nerd protests. Details. But the point stands, the galaxy is crazy enough that the Mad World scenarios in the training are more unusual circumstance scenarios than world-gone insane ones, Jacob argues. Actually, it's a reference to an axiom technique that basically mimics a holochamber with all the safeties off. Like all things in the galaxy, it has many names, but Mad World is one of the most common, the nerd says, and Jacob shrugs. Fine, but I don't know, it feels lacking to me. A world gone mad is things like a mass riot as a psychosis drives the entire population to literal insanity, or some kind of deep space axiom beast descending from above and terraforming the entire planet into a nursery, for its young as the population are enslaved, mind, body, and soul, into tending to the eggs and... What? Why are you looking at me like that? All right, what shows have you been watching? Because I've clearly been missing out. The nerd asks and Jacob considers. Not a show, a book series. I have a bunch downloaded and a text reader. Lets me relax during the boring parts of the trip and listen to things. And it's called The Artrika Chronicles. Jacob answers. All right, let me write that down because I have some new entertainment to watch. I thought you were going nuts over human stuff, Jacob asks. I'm not exclusive. So you're a pop culture slut? Jacob teases and the nerd merely laughs. That's not a no. No, it wasn't. Now I've shown you the goods, you deviant. Now get out, the nerd exclaims before slithering closer and then slowly shoving out the unresisting and highly amused Jacob. The door is slammed behind him and he walks away laughing. He has a couple of hours before the training begins and he decides to head outside and test something. It only takes a bit before the whipping frigid winds of Zalwar call to him. He steps out onto the balcony and then jumps up to perch on the railing. Just breathing in the cold air and feeling his tattoos thrum with power to keep him at a perfect temperature. It was one thing to find yourself among people that agreed with you. It was another entirely to find yourself among people that you fit in so well with. It was like coming home. Jacob nodded to himself. His tattoos might need a lot more space than the popular brand. But he already had them and saw no reason to upgrade. Yet. They were improving the brand by leaps and bounds. But he preferred the tattoo, even if it matched up well with Undaunted standards. It was still his own creation and was a constant reminder of just how much he fit in, which was a far cry from what he had found of his origins. He was not the last Shrikadalon, but he was the only one like himself. The rest who had taken paths like his were exiled from the family. They were pacifists, pedantic and obsessive pacifists who thought themselves above and beyond others for their choice to leave themselves vulnerable and weak. You could be a drug-abusing, drinking, gambling idiot, and so long as you weren't violent about it, you were thought better of than the professional soldier or police officer. Hell, according to the records, he had been on good standing with his family when he had fallen completely under the sway of Schleppa and drank himself so deep in debt, he basically sold himself into slavery. Part of him wanted to say hello to what was once his kinfolk, but another part of him was disgusted he had ever come from such people. You don't plead with the ravenous beast not to eat you, you shoot it. You kill it or drive it off. You do not tolerate that kind of monstrosity. You burn it out, root and branch. Sweet goddess boy, the hell does my first student have in his past that has him looking like that? A newly familiar voice asks from behind, and he turns to regard his new teacher and her daughter. Specialist Bright Eyes? He asked. And daughter? We are, and you're Captain Shrikadalon. Now what is you looking so pissed off? Just thinking, he says, hopping down off the railing to stand on the same level. About the Zalwar Shrikadalon Enclave? Mangowa asks. Wait, is he an actual Shrikadalon? Aren't they a bunch of complete pushovers that school children can roll for lunch money? Ashina asks. They are, Mangowa notes. That and other stuff, Jacob says before sighing. As for me, I failed my first time through life, fell into addiction and debt, and sold myself to monsters to pay for more of a fix. Then everything was lost and some part of me managed to break away and escape. Now I'm so different from my living family that I dare not approach them. I'm now everything they hate in the galaxy. I thought the name was coincidence. I didn't think you were one of the pacifists. It was a lesser enclave, a mobile one. They're about a quarter of the way across the galaxy on the opposite side of Centris, Jacob says before looking away again. I was an adult that time, older than I am now, but they still let me fall into addiction and sell myself to monsters. It was my life and my fault, but didn't they care enough to stop me? Would they care to even look at me now? I've looked up their ethics, the beliefs they live by. They warn of growing too passionate, growing too vengeful, against holding grudges or condemning others. I am everything they warn against. I am their son, but I am their anathema. Can't relate, I'm afraid, Mangowa says, walking up next to him and resting her pincers on the railing. I was the enforcer of my family. I was in contest with the other big girls to be the biggest and winning. Then as I came back from putting the fear of the stung into a whole load of bitches, everything was gone and there was no proof anywhere on who did what. That sucks. Did you ever bury that tail knife of yours into whoever was responsible? Jacob asks as he leans back a bit and eyes up her stinger. Careful now, it's considered heavy flirting to an Andinist to admire their tail, Mangowa says, and Jacob snorts. Fine, I won't talk about the tail, but don't you say a thing about my gorgeous plumage, he says, unfolding his arm wings to hold them out and show off the russet red and dark brown patterns on his wings. Oh, put them away before someone writes us up for fraternization, Mangowa says as Ashina is now smothering giggles with her pincers. Jacob's wings snap back into their folded position, and he turns around to lean against the railing. Still, the lost son of pacifists, you do know that the planet-side sects of the Shrikadalons tend to be a bit more loose with the rules than roving ones, right? Really? Yeah, they have guards and such, more ceremonial, in fact, almost entirely ceremonial. But they do have guards and guns and people at least technically trained to fight. You might find some kind of family with them if you introduce yourself. Mangowa tells him, and he grows very, very quiet at that. Oh, goddess damn, it's a fucking mirror. Well, not as good-looking as me, but a mirror still. Oh, yeah? I thought about going to the Stung descendants and just taking over. How'd that look? You're not going to do it, are you? Mangowa asked, and he slowly shakes his head. Then there's nothing for it then. Forget it. Is there a reason you tracked me down for this talk? Don't flatter yourself, Featherhead. I was out for a walk with my little girl, and we stumbled onto the person whose mugshot I've already memorized. Yeesh, putting something that ugly to memory? Jacob asks, and she snorts. Yep. Heh, she says in amusement. Still, we have a couple hours before we're scheduled to start, so get lost, and if you're late, I actually will track you down. You'll need wings for that. Later, Grounder. Jacob scoffs as he hops onto the railing and launches himself off as he unfolds his wings and lets the whipping winds carry him upwards. Show off! Ashina shouts after him. Shriek it along. You're only 2 minutes early. Do you know what that means? Mangowa asks as he shows up at the hollow chamber. That you have no actual reason to give me shit and are about to anyways? He asks her, and she gives him an even look before gesturing into the chamber. It's all already set up. Head in and we'll get started. She tells him, and he heads into the chamber. It shifts as he enters, and he's suddenly in a fielded area outside of town. I figured that you should have room to get shot out of the sky like a complete idiot. Thanks, but are there enough rocks for you to get squished under? Jacob volleys back in an instant. That's the spirit. Now then, Mangowa say, as she enters behind him and kicks him in the chest. The tree he impacts grows chains and ties him down. When you break out of the chains, your mission is to find and attack me. Good luck. Fuck you, Jacob says without much actual venom in his voice. That's the spirit? Who knows, if you're impressive enough, you might get the chance, Mangowa teases. How about no? He demands, and she walks away laughing. Trying to teleport is out. Strengthening himself just summons more chains, and trying to cut them makes them grow thicker and heavier. Then after 10 minutes, they simply drop away. Not that it does much, as he has struggled and fought so much that he's been effectively entombed with links thicker around than his head. But he can teleport out, and it downright maintains his previous shape. All right, time to get even with the buggy bitch, Jacob tells himself, and he cloaks himself as best he can before taking off into the air. His stealth is far from perfect, but at the height he can fly, it doesn't have to be.